Now, the 2021 season saw the introduction of sprints to Formula 1, initially at 3 different locations. This season, that number has been increased to 6, beginning with Azerbaijan. This year's sprints will also feature a change in the format of the entire race weekend. An additional qualifying, to be known as the Sprint Showdown, has been added on Saturday morning in place of a second practice session that had been criticised for being pointless. With Friday's qualifying session determining the grid for Sunday's race, Saturday's action will now consist of a sprint shootout followed by a 100km race. The changes, which leave only one practice session, are intended to keep the weekend entertaining while also encouraging drivers to take more risks on Saturday due to the lack of direct impact on Sunday's race. Azerbaijan hosted the first of 6 sprint weekends this season, which is more than double the number of sprint weekends held in 2022. Drivers have largely supported the changes, but reigning world champion Max Verstappen has remained an outspoken opposition figure on the subject, suggesting he may quit the sport if the rules aren't changed. I hope there won't be too many changes, otherwise I won't be around for too long. I'm not a fan of it at all. When we do all that kind of stuff, the weekend becomes very intense and we already do a lot of races. Verstappen's comments serve as a warning to F1 executives who face losing one of the sport's biggest stars. But Ralf Schumacher, who won 6 Grand Prix in his career, has spoken out about Verstappen's scathing remarks and threats of retirement. Instead, Michael Schumacher's brother believes that the sport will thrive in the future, with or without Verstappen. The past, the present and the future have shown or will show that Formula 1 is much bigger than any individual. Bernie Ecclestone is also gone, and without him Formula 1 wouldn't exist, and now it's more successful than ever. So Verstappen should either pack up and leave or just accept it as it is. I understand his attitude because there are a lot of risks due to the increased number of sprints, but still he gets paid to do it. But again, if he wants to go, then he has to go. That's what Formula 1 will become, not perish, much as I love him. While Verstappen has been critical of not only the sprint format, but also the decision to hold one in Baku, he went into the Grand Prix determined to get the most points possible. As Formula 1 held its first sprint race of the season, the 2-time world champion predicted that the race he won last year would be slightly chaotic. Baku is a challenging track to get right, as it's a street circuit with long straights. It gives us multiple options on what wings we can run, Verstappen said. It's also the first sprint race weekend of the season, so that might make it slightly chaotic. And it appears that his prediction was correct, as the Dutchman had a run-in with Mercedes' George Russell. Russell started one position behind the defending champion on the grid, but got off to a faster start. They were side by side as they approached the first corner, but Verstappen was not about to give up the lead so easily. They scraped across several corners, with Russell making contact with the side of the Red Bull before Verstappen made contact with the wall. The Dutchman's car was damaged and the Brit eventually passed. Verstappen fumed over the radio, telling race engineer Gianpiero Lambiesi, "He tapped me, that's how he got into the position, effing report it." When he passed Russell later in the race, he brought it up again, saying, "I know how to do that." But it was clear that he didn't let all of his rage out. After jumping out of his car, he removed his helmet and waited for Russell to join him in Parc Fermé before letting the Briton know how he felt. TV cameras caught the moment as Russell apologised while still removing his gloves. "We all have no grip, we all need to have a little bit of space," said Verstappen with a smirk. As Russell walked away after saying sorry, Verstappen shouted after him, "Next time you can expect the same, D-head." The cameras were able to get close enough to Verstappen's car to show that a large chunk of the sideboard had been removed as a result of the collision. The crash damage may have contributed to the Dutchman's inability to catch Charles Leclerc in the closing stages of the sprint, despite the Ferrari racer's struggle with his tyres. In the post-race interview, Verstappen continued his rant, saying, "I just don't understand why you need to make so much risk on lap 1, to understeer into my side pod and create a hole. We all have cold tyres and it's easy to lock up, but his beautiful way of explaining, 'Oh mate, I locked up, look at the onboard,' it doesn't make sense. It's fine though, we still got to P3 and good points, it is what it is." Russell has since expressed his thoughts on Verstappen's outburst. He wondered if Verstappen felt differently now that in the heat of the moment, but he also admitted that he didn't appreciate the rhetoric Verstappen used, albeit without specifying which comment was egregious. He's a 2-time world champion, leading the championship again at the moment. It doesn't bother me, but he probably lets himself down a little bit with those sort of comments. Max is a super good guy, great driver. Just words like that are a bit unnecessary. While Verstappen appeared much calmer on Sunday, despite losing the race to his teammate, the shenanigans during the sprint start could only aggravate his negative attitude towards the new format. Nevertheless, Verstappen has been able to shed some additional light on his previous remarks, explaining that rather than elements such as sprint races dictating what he does in terms of his career, what matters far more to him is the overall state of F1 and the demands that it places on drivers. When asked by motorsport.com if he would really quit F1 because of sprint races, Verstappen said, "I think I always said that even if there won't be any more sprint races, if we keep expanding the calendar and the whole weekend is that long, at one point you question yourself, is it worth it? I do like racing, I do like winning. I know that of course there is the salary and everything and you have a good life, but is it actually a good life? I think sometimes you get to a point in your career where maybe you want to do other stuff. I have the contract until the end of 2028 and then we'll review again, but I do feel that if it's getting at one point too much, then it's time for a change." Verstappen has been hinting at his eventual F1 retirement for quite some time, longer than those who believe his remarks were novel may realise. These latest remarks are just two sides of the same coin. He doesn't like F1's endless expansion. Verstappen stated last year that his current Red Bull contract could be his final. He signed up until the end of 2028 and by then he'll be 31 and might be ready to call it quits and race somewhere else. It's something he's genuinely excited about. Verstappen has frequently mentioned endurance racing as a discipline in which he wishes to compete, and he's frequently competed in such events in sim racing. That is the external pull factor, but there's also a push factor. Verstappen is not a fan of the increasingly crowded F1 calendar and believes he will tire of it sooner or later. He stated a few weeks ago that the idea of 24 or 25 races should be met with shorter weekends rather than ever intense ones. Any questions about sprint races tend to elicit this attitude from him again, because sprints represent more of the relentless expansion he despises. There are other aspects of F1 that he dislikes, but the sprint races will only serve to drive Verstappen out of the sport as part of a larger picture. It's therefore a stretch to interpret anything Verstappen has said about sprints as a quit threat. It just adds to the fact that he's keeping his long-term options open rather than simply assuming he'll race until his normal F1 career expires. Nonetheless, nothing can overshadow Red Bull's outstanding start to the season. Red Bull has been in a league of their own so far in 2023. 3 pole positions, 4 wins, and 3 1-2s in 4 races. Given their track record, it's easy to see why Verstappen is wary of the sprint format, with the added risk of less practice time and a heavy collision on Saturday potentially preventing you from racing on Sunday if mechanics can't get the car fixed quickly enough, not to mention the possibility of more penalties later in the season. But what are your thoughts? Is Verstappen correct in his criticism of the sprint format? And do you believe his outbursts following the Russell incident were justified? Make sure to let us know down below. Thank you for your time. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos.